Welcome back to the International Classroom Podcast. As we're wrapping up Season 2, we're going to hit rewind to revisit 10 of the most impactful, insightful, and thought-provoking discussions that we've had throughout this season. So join us as we dive back into these episodes and relive some of the magic from the past season. So in the 10 years that you've been there, I mean, has computer science and coding in itself changed, especially in the last few years? Because at one point, I saw a meme that went round. Actually, it was a guy, and he was in this library, and there was the TV playing about AI and jobs, and he's taken out all these different books. And the first one he goes to is like coding, and it was like, we were told in school that the job to go to if you want to be successful and make money is computer science and coding. Have you seen a change in that recently?
Have I seen a change in from teachers, from the public? What?
From both sides. So let's think about a public demand first. Is there less public demand for it?
I mean, I don't have any data on it. You see a bunch of blog posts or comics, like what you just described.
Yeah.
And to, I guess, let's say to people in the know, when you have an app that can do a skill that like writing or coding or lots of other things, you immediately think, oh, wow, I guess people don't need to do that thing anymore, which is obviously false. It just means the nature of that profession, that field changes. And if you think about it, our world is not getting any less digital or reliant on computing. So I'm thinking that computer science education and the need to learn to code still will be quite important, potentially more important, but it will just look different. That's all.
It's a combination of the two. And I mean, you're going to be seeing that, I suppose, aren't you, at some point? And you kind of are bridging that gap, I suppose, aren't you, with the projects you've got going on in terms of computer science and coding, and then how AI is also coming into that to marry up. What about yourself? Do you kind of go a traditional route where it's good to know everything, I want to know the different ways, or do you kind of feel that actually the combination and co-creation of the two is a way moving forward?
Well, anyone's going to say co-creation these days. But I'm not going to go that route. So the answer is co-creation, but I want to actually talk about students. So Alex, you and I are adults. You're not a cinematographer right now, but I think you know the basics and you could probably pick it up very quickly. And let's just say actually you are a cinematographer. You've already learned it. You're an expert at it. The problem with students in AI and education is that kids are learning these things for the first time. And so how we introduce these tools has way more consequence for them than for us, because we already know how to do the basic things. We already have that understanding. I'm super afraid. Let's imagine, Alex, that you were teaching a cinematography class, an intro to cinematography class, kids who've never picked up a camera. And OpenAI's Sora is available to everyone for free, version 5.0, right? It's excellent. It's excellent. You'd be hard pressed to not want to expose your kids to it so that they can make beautiful things and really reflect like their ideas in their head, and share it with other people and really communicate things that would normally take them months or maybe years, right? For me, I'm thinking there is still huge value in just the learning process rather than just the outcome itself. The problem is I don't even, does that mean that we just go traditional for a little bit and then introduce the tools? When exactly do we introduce the tools? How do we introduce the tools? How do we know that we're not having a long-lasting detrimental impact on a student's development of basic cinematography skills, right? How do we know that? And lastly, Alex, does it even matter? Basically, does it matter that we are having a long-term detrimental impact on the canon of cinematography skills from pre-generative AI? Because it's not like generative AI is going away. So maybe we just don't care about those basic skills or the basic concepts anymore.
It's a fascinating one, isn't it? I love that. It's a great question. Do we care? Because you've got generations, a generational gap, haven't we, in terms of, I kind of find I'm similar age to yourself, and like we're at that midpoint, whereas grandparents to grandchildren, that generational gap and the difference of what could be, I don't know, 60, 70 years, there's a huge, I'm going to say it's not necessarily a skills gap, but maybe it is, but there is that gap, isn't there, about what they learn in terms of woodworking skills. Let's take that, for example, like woodworking and being able to even change a tire, you know, the things that we kind of see as what we used to say is like almost traditional skill sets of, well, can you, let's say, change a circuit? So if you need to fix a plug in the house, that was always one, I remember that, where you need to be able to fix a plug, you need to change your tire, you need to change the oil in your car, you know, woodwork. So you need to be able to make things. If you don't know what a 2x4 is, and if you don't know how to, you know, set it apart to put up a stud wall, generational skills. Whereas now, like my children, I've got 2 daughters, 10 and 8. It's like they don't need those generational skills. So is it? And I'm trying to kind of think about what you've said. Do they care? Or me in the middle as a parent, I'm in the middle of those generations. Do I care that the children and students of the future can't do those things? And I suppose it's really, should we? If they're not taught, are they lost skills? It's almost like an evolution. If we don't use it, are we losing it? And I don't necessarily have the answer. I think but it is something definitely worth thinking and discussing.
Yeah. You know, we won't have the answers to these things. I'm just trying to figure out, how do we get early signals that we're going the wrong way, and then correct, you know, because we're going to make lots of mistakes in this new AI moment. I just want to make sure that we're monitoring things so that when we do make those mistakes, we can course correct.
I recently had a fascinating conversation with Leon Furs about whether teachers need to become proficient in computer science. And this chat, combined with my own experience working with a computer scientist on crafting AI prompts, really got me thinking about where education is headed. So from this really interesting clip that I had with Pat, we're living in a time where AI, artificial intelligence, is becoming more integrated into every aspect of our lives, including education. And it raises some really big questions about how we should be teaching and the types of skills our students, our children need to thrive, need to learn, and to be able to be successful in the future. And one of the key ideas that I want to explore is about the importance of, let's say, interdisciplinary learning. You've got the schools that have compartmentalized subjects, you know, they teach them in isolation, but is this still the best approach in a world where problems are becoming increasingly complex and interconnected? And I really don't believe that's the right way to go. And it's fascinating from this sort of episode where we can kind of go into interdisciplinary learning and talk about the benefits and how students can explore these wide range of topics and viewpoints and develop the skills. And Pat goes further on in the episode to talk about reducing the amount of content and frameworks and everything that students have to do. And within this approach, we can get this comprehensive, integrated understanding of the world and talk about real world problems. And kind of this episode alludes to skills, which I think is really important. And it also goes on a little bit about coding, which is an interesting topic we've kind of gone through today a little bit. And that's the relevance of why this episode with Pat is coming out. In that coding and computer science is still there for everyone. It's still in a world where it's a fundamental skill. It's going to be used in lots of different disciplines. And so if we're considering the idea that we teach basic math, science, English, history, then actually it should be quite useful for students to have foundational computational skills. But the interesting thing is this, it's like we've got foundational understanding, which we know is really, really important in any subject of education, but also thinking about the types of specialized pathways that we'd be able to offer in like personalization or this idea of reducing content, and a world where we can seamlessly blend love for, let's say, nature with cutting edge computer science or analytics, this idea of a blended learning approach or an interdisciplinary learning approach. I think it's just a fantastic opportunity to have this discourse and conversation about the challenges and opportunities that are ahead for us, and especially for teachers, because it's all good and well focusing on student skills, but we've got to be mindful of who's going to be teaching this idea of interdisciplinary. We've got to think about how we're going to model interdisciplinary thinking, how we're going to develop the assessments, how we're going to develop the curriculum, how are we going to develop the skills in actually the teachers. So they've got knowledge in multiple fields to be able to do this. Now, it's a massive order, but it's super, super exciting, and this opportunity to reshape education and be supported by AI, and being able to actually embrace interdisciplinary approaches for effective and engaging education, and better preparing students for the potential of the world they're going to go into, where it's ubiquitous use of AI, and they need to be able to leverage this knowledge because it's going to be from different domains and it becomes super invaluable. So it's really interesting as we draw to the end of this in terms of the types of skills that you think are going to be really important for teachers, but also really important for students as well. And how do we go about developing the skills that teachers need to be able to facilitate this type of interdisciplinary learning? Don't have all the answers for it, but just a fascinating sort of clip from this episode with Pat, and go back and watch it and go and read some of the work he's doing and the different types of things he's doing. It's really, really useful. But a great one just to rewind on and see where we're at now, and look forward to the future actually in terms of where we can be if we do these things. Hopefully you've enjoyed the rewind, guys, this 10-minute clip. And if you have, smash that like button, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. And I will see you tomorrow for number 4 of the TIC Podcast Rewind. Take care.